Before there was pain, before fear, before death itself, there was a garden, a place so perfect even the air seemed to sing. And in that garden, humanity took its very first breath. But what began as paradise soon became the story of every heart that ever lived. The story of choice, of trust, and of what happens when both are broken. This is the story of Adam and Eve, the story of us all. In the beginning there was only God, eternal, unchanging, and full of love. Then came his voice, a voice that spoke, and from nothing everything came to life. Light burst into darkness. Oceans roared into place. Mountains rose and stars danced across the sky. Every creature, from the smallest bird to the mighty lion, lived in perfect harmony. But something was still missing, a being that could reflect God's own heart. From the dust of the ground, God formed a man. He breathed his own breath into him, and for the first time, human eyes opened. The world was alive, and so was he. God placed the man, Adam, in a garden called Eden, a paradise overflowing with beauty. Rivers shimmered like silver, trees bore endless fruit, and peace filled every corner. Nothing was missing except someone to share it with. From Adam's side, God created Eve, not from the ground, but from his very being. She was bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh, unequal, complete, and loved. Together they were the first reflection of divine love on earth. In Eden there was no fear, no pain, no shame, only joy, freedom, and perfect connection with the Creator. They could eat from every tree in the garden, except one. At the center stood a tree unlike any other, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and God said, "You may eat freely from every tree but not from this one. For when you do, you will surely die." It wasn't a trap. It was a choice. Because love that isn't chosen isn't love at all. For a time, everything was perfect. Days passed like music, laughter, peace, and wonder. But something watched from the shadows, something ancient, something jealous, the serpent. Once a creature of beauty, now twisted by pride. It could not stand to see humanity walk so closely with God. So it waited and whispered. It spoke not with venom, but with questions. Did God really say you can't eat from that tree? Doubt. That was the first seed it planted. Eve looked again. The fruit was beautiful, golden glowing, promising more. Knowledge, power, independence. Her hand trembled as she reached out and took it. Then Adam took it too, and in that instant the air changed. The light dimmed. The sound of life grew still. Their eyes were opened. But what they saw first was shame. They felt fear. They hid. They covered themselves, trying to hide what could never be hidden. The first sin entered the world, not through violence or hatred, but through a quiet choice to doubt God's goodness. When God called out, "Where are you?" He already knew. But his voice carried heartbreak, not anger. He had given them everything, yet they chose to believe a lie. The serpent was cursed, doomed to crawl and taste dust forever. The woman would know pain and struggle. The man would toil and sweat for every meal. And worst of all, they were sent out of the garden. Angels stood guard at the gate, flaming swords in hand, a sign that paradise was lost. But even in judgment, there was mercy. Before they left, God clothed them, covering their shame with garments made from sacrifice, a shadow of what was to come. The story could have ended there. Broken, hopeless, gone. But it didn't. Even as they walked away, God whispered a promise: one day a child would come, born of a woman, who would crush the serpent's head forever. Eden was closed, but heaven's plan had just begun. Adam and Eve carried the memory of the garden in their hearts, a longing for the way things used to be and a hope for the way things could be again. And that's the story of all humanity. We are all children of the same choice, but also heirs to the same promise. Where Adam failed, another would one day succeed. Where they hid, another would one day heal. The story of Adam and Eve isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror. It shows how easily we can trade truth for lies and how deeply we all need grace. Because in the end, Eden wasn't just a garden, it was a beginning. And every heartbeat since then has been an echo of God's plan to bring us home.